Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming you guys. Welcome back. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. This is the last day of our 5-day course where I've been helping students to understand and experience the jhanas and the 4 stages of enlightenment. We're going to be moving on today with starting with doing the meditation to realize non-self, just so you guys can get some more practice with that. Then I'm going to move into the first talk, which is the 5 hindrances, removing your obstructions to enlightenment. These are the 5 things that are going to hinder you from being able to get to enlightenment. We spend a lot of time talking about how to get to enlightenment, but these are the things that are going to block you from that. So the Buddha gives you solutions on how to make sure you remove these obstacles out of your mind. Then we're going to learn about how to determine if you've attained enlightenment. Then we're going to talk about the integration of the teachings into your day-to-day life so that you can get continued support and continued benefit. And then we'll essentially be finished for the day. We're not going to go probably past 11 or 11:30, somewhere around there. We'll probably be finished up for today. And if you guys are interested, we can do like a group lunch if you'd like. Sometimes students like to do that kind of thing. There's some other students that are going to be coming here, some new students. Sasha, your friend Sasha that you guys know, she's coming with some of her coworkers for a little chat, and they would like to go to lunch first and then come back here and then have like a little chat about the teachings. So you guys are all welcome to join into that. If you guys would like to come along, you're more than welcome to. We can do it as kind of a group thing. So we can talk about it when we get to that point, see what you're thinking, see what you're feeling. So if you guys would like to join for this meditation, I taught this one yesterday, where I'm going to start with the chanting. Then you guys do your own breathing mindfulness meditation, where you're just focused on the breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath. Then I'm going to come in with some phrases like, I am not the body. We're going to say that multiple times. I am not the mind. We're going to say that multiple times. There is no self. We'll say that multiple times. I do not exist. We'll say that multiple times. Then I am not the mind, I am not the body, there is no self, I do not exist, and we'll say that multiple times. Then after that, go back to breathing mindfulness meditation. I will probably prompt you on that one. The first one you'll just need to know to do yourself. The one on the end, I'll prompt you about that one, and then we'll come out with the chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the 5 hindrances. So take whatever position's comfortable for you guys. I'm going to start with the chanting. You guys are welcome to join in if you like. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Mahakeva Putang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sankho Sanghang namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vicacaranang sammuno Sakato rokavitu Anutero purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusrang Bhoto Bhagavati. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Repeat these phrases in the mind on the out breath. I am not the body. 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 I am not the mind. 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 There is no self. 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 I do not exist. 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 I am not the body. I am not the mind. There is no self. I do not exist. I am not the body. I am not the mind. There is no self. I do not exist. am not the body. I am not the mind. There is no self. I do not exist. I am not the body. I am not the mind. There is no self. I do not exist. I am not the body. I am not the mind. There is no self. I do not exist. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Emakewa Potang Mahakewanhang Apiwateyami Sawakato Emakewata Tammo Damang Namasami Supatipano Emakewato Sawakasangko Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso emakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Koto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning, everyone. Nice to see everyone here. Good morning. Welcome to everyone online as well. What I'm going to do here is just pause with this meditation and see what questions you guys might have about this meditation or any other meditations as well, because students are oftentimes involved in building up their meditation practice. And I'd like to just pause here before we go farther in the course and see if you guys have any meditation type questions, whether it's about this meditation or any other meditation. You guys can have it, you kind of like a time to ask any meditation questions. Anything you guys would like to ask? You have a question? See someone moving towards a mic. Are you moving towards a mic? Yeah. Okay. Either that or the bathroom, one of the two. Or the snack bar.
Just wondering, I don't quite understand about the I do not exist.
Mm-hmm.
Is it talking about the self? And like, could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, what the mind does when it has that personal existence view, the idea that there is a self where it's clinging to the body and or the mind, it will think there's an I here. Like, I am hungry, I am angry, I am frustrated, I want to go to the store, where that's the way we speak in the English language. But in reality, if you look at it, there is no I. It's just that the mind's holding on to this whole concept of an I. So you've got to be able to strip this away out of the mind, where the mind doesn't see it as an I. There is a being in existence. Like, there's a physical body there, there's a mind. We know that. That's not to deny that there isn't a being in existence. But what that phrase is there for is to strip away that I, that there is an I here, because that's getting in the way. Right? Like, someone might say, you are being disrespectful to me, right? And now you get angry because there's a me here, where when you get rid of this, if someone's being disrespectful, They're just choosing to be disrespectful. They're not being disrespectful to me because there's no me here, right? So you will be able to have a much more liberated mind when you get rid of this personal existence view. But as long as that I is in there, then the mind can't get liberated from that, because it's going to keep inserting that I into things. So one of the things that the Buddha says, he says, there is no you there, right? There is no you there. But the mind's personal existence view keeps wanting to insert that you. So that I do not exist is to strip away the I and understand that that does not exist, while we understand there's definitely a being in existence. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. Remember, you guys online, you guys can ask questions too by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Let me just check Facebook. Okay, I don't see any questions there either. Okay, so we're going to move into this topic of the 5 hindrances, removing obstructions to your enlightenment. Here you're going to learn about the 5 things that the Buddha shares that's going to obstruct you from getting to enlightenment. And by getting rid of these, then you can make your way towards enlightenment. It's like hurdles. It's like obstructions. They're like roadblocks that are going to stop you from getting to enlightenment. So you need to be able to understand what these things are and understand the solutions of how to eliminate them. So to start us off, what I've got here is some words of the Buddha where he's just introducing the 5 hindrances so you can build confidence that he actually taught this. Here he says, monks, there are these 5 hindrances. What 5? The hindrance of sensual desire, the hindrance of ill will, the hindrance of complacency, the hindrance of restlessness and worry, the hindrance of doubt. These are the 5 hindrances. This noble eightfold path is to be developed for the direct knowledge or experience of these 5 hindrances, for the full understanding of them, for their complete destruction, for their abandoning. So it's the Eightfold Path, which is the core central teaching that's going to purify the mind of anything and everything. This is just one discourse where the Buddha is talking about the 5 hindrances. He has another discourse where he talks about the 7 factors of enlightenment are to be able to eliminate the 5 hindrances. So when you read the teachings of the Buddha and you're learning them, you shouldn't learn them in isolation. Sometimes when somebody sees this, they're like, oh, okay, all I need then is the Eightfold Path and that'll take care of the 5 hindrances. That's not true. The Buddha has multiple teachings, and he will usually teach things from different angles. So you need to be able to understand the totality of his teachings. So he does talk here that the Eightfold Path is a solution for the 5 hindrances. You need the Eightfold Path well underway to do anything on the path to enlightenment. But there's another teaching where he talks about the 7 factors of enlightenment are to remove the 5 hindrances. These are more direct ways to remove the 5 hindrances, where the Eightfold Path is more like painting with a broad brush, where the 7 factors of enlightenment are to kind of go in and fine tune this and really uproot the 5 hindrances out of the mind as well. So you need the Eightfold Path well underway in order to be able to do anything on the path to enlightenment, but you're also going to need the 7 factors of enlightenment. So I'm going to end up teaching you the 7 factors of enlightenment first before we actually explore the 5 hindrances, because then you'll know how to apply those solutions if I teach those to you. But let's talk some more about these 5 hindrances. They have similarities to the 10 fetters. 4 out of the 5 hindrances are actually part of the 10 fetters. This is another way that the Buddha will teach. He will teach and kind of group things together for one particular topic, but then he might kind of regroup those things and add some other things in when he's talking about another topic. So you'll see things like mindfulness show up in multiple teachings, whether it's the Eightfold Path, the 7 factors of enlightenment. When he talks about guarding the mind, he will talk about mindfulness in all these different places. The same thing is true about these here, is that if you look at the 10 fetters, we could say all the 10 fetters are obstructions to your enlightenment. But here he's really targeting what are the 5 most impactful obstructions to your enlightenment. So he's kind of reorganizing his teachings a bit. So you'll see this through the teachings of the Buddha. And it's through learning and practicing the Eightfold Path while eliminating the 10 fetters to include using the 7 factors of enlightenment that are actually going to uproot these 5 hindrances. So when we say the 7 factors of enlightenment, sometimes people think that that's to determine whether you are enlightened or you aren't enlightened, but you're going to see that that's not the case. The 7 factors of enlightenment are actually a tool to be able to train your mind. So I'm going to teach you those here in a moment. Gautama Buddha's teachings oftentimes point to each other, like I was just saying. Here's an example with the 5 hindrances and the 10 fetters. You can see some similarities between these. You can also see this, for example, with the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, and the 5 precepts. These teachings are all interconnected too. So you can't look at the teachings of the Buddha in isolation. You need to be able to see the totality of his teachings. So if there's struggles or impediments on the path to enlightenment, you can look at the 5 hindrances individually and then apply each individual solution to remove those particular hindrances, because you'll be making progress on the path and it'll feel really great. But then you're going to meet with some obstructions. You're going to be like, whoa, what is this? So oftentimes when we think about this journey to enlightenment, we think of it as being linear, that it's just from here to here. And that's how you're going to get to enlightenment. That's not the way it is, right? You're going to be making your way up and you're going to be feeling really great and really wonderful. Wow, look at all this progress, thinking that it's going to be a linear progression. But then you're going to kind of do one of these numbers, right? And then you're going to kind of go up again and you're going to do one of these numbers and then you're going to go up and do another one, right? So as you're getting to those points where you kind of feel like you're meeting with a wall, or you're doing one of these numbers where you're, flicking around and you're not having any kind of progress, you look at the 5 hindrances to see what's in your way, what's standing in your way of that progress. And then you implement the solutions, and that's what's going to help you to continue to make progress. Okay, so I'm going to teach you guys the 7 factors of enlightenment, because these are the solutions to the 5 hindrances. So that way, when I teach you the 5 hindrances, you'll understand when I talk about the solutions. So these are called the 7 factors of enlightenment. This is like a tool to fine tune the mind. It's not to determine whether you are enlightened or you aren't enlightened. When you first get on the path to enlightenment, you're learning things like the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, meditation training, and all these kinds of things. You might think about if you're trying to create this sculpture, because that's what you're doing, is you're taking this being who you are and you're trying to create a nice sculpture. You're trying to create this individual being that has evolved to this higher consciousness. It's like creating a sculpture, trying to get this piece of kind of raw wood to look like an intricate figurine, right? When you first start working on a sculpture, if you've got a raw log, you're probably going to get out your hatchet or your axe first, and you're going to start chucking off big chunks of wood, right? That's like the Eightfold Path. You're chucking off wrong view. That's a big one, right? When we first come to the path, we think everybody else is the problem. We think that everyone else is causing us to experience these feelings. We've got to get out our hatchet and chuck off wrong view. That's a big chunk of wood coming off of this raw piece of wood. And then we chuck off wrong intention and wrong speech and wrong action, and wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong mindfulness, and wrong concentration. So you're using like a hatchet or an axe with the Eightfold Path, which is a really broad tool to be able to chuck off big chunks of wood. But then as you're creating this sculpture, you're going to come in with little finer tools, like maybe like a razor blade, and you're going to come in and put the eyelashes and the wrinkles around the eyes. You're creating this nice, wonderful figurine. That's what the 7 factors of enlightenment are. They're that fine tool that you're coming in and fine-tuning the mind. Because when you're chucking off these big chunks of wood with your hatchet or your axe, your mind's going to kind of be, kind of swinging sometimes. And you're going to need these tools to be able to come in and fine-tune the mind. So the first one of the 7 factors of enlightenment is mindfulness. This is the same mindfulness that you learn in the Eightfold Path, that you're developing awareness of the mind, and specifically the 4 foundations of mindfulness. You're going to need awareness of your mind to be able to implement the other 7 factors. Awareness of the mind is to be able to be aware of your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, whatever's going on in your mind, because oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we're not aware of what's going on in our mind. I don't know about you, but before I learned these teachings, I was just plowing through the world, knocking down trees and burning up the forest. And I was down the road and I started smelling smoke. And I looked behind me and I was like, who knocked down all those trees? And who lit that fire? Right? And then I started learning about right view, and I was like, oh, I'm the one who did all that stuff, right? I wasn't even aware how I was affecting the people around me, right? You're not even aware of your own mind. You're not aware of how you're affecting the people around you, but slowly but surely you gain awareness of that, right? So you would like to have awareness of your own mind, so you're aware of the thoughts and feelings and things that are in your mind, because if you have unwholesome thoughts in your mind and you act upon those, it's going to produce harm in the world. And then that harm is going to come back to you. It's kind of like walking down the beach and the wind's blowing in your face and you keep kicking up sand. Well, if you're not aware that the sand is blowing back in your face, then you're never going to make any improved decisions. But if you can have awareness of mind and you can be aware of what's going on in your mind, you can really get ahead of the curve here, and you can get rid of these unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. So your mindfulness is a guard. It's guarding the mind, and you need to be practicing this at all times of your day. When you're first waking up in the morning, all day long, and as you're going to sleep at night, you need to be practicing mindfulness, because your thoughts can invade you at different times in your day, especially when you're waking up in the morning. Oh, I don't want to go to work. Why do I have to go to this place? Oh, I hate going to see these people. Why do I keep going to this place? Right? You need to pay attention to that. Maybe you need to get a new job, right? Maybe you need to find a new way to support yourself, right? There's no need to drag yourself to work each day. Or if you're going to sleep at night, you can start feeling guilty and shameful for the things that you've done during the day. And those thoughts can invade you. And that means you need to clean up what you're doing during the day. So if you have awareness of those thoughts and you can see what's going on, now you can change that. But if you don't have mindfulness, you're not aware of those things. So the same mindfulness that the Buddha talks about in the Eightfold Path, where you have awareness of mind, you're going to need to practice that all throughout your day. But more specifically, it's those 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of the bodily sensations, those early warning system that's alerting you that anger and frustration and all these other feelings are about to arise. I taught this on Monday, where you can start to tune into this, where like with anger, there's going to be tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is the early warning system that you're about to get angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. And what you would like to do is apply right effort and cut that off and let it go. Don't suppress it or repress it. You're cutting it off and letting it go out of the mind. Not only the painful feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant feelings like shyness and uncomfortableness and things like that, but even those conditioned pleasant feelings. Conditioned pleasant feelings are the mind forming its inner feelings based on some condition. If you allow the mind to get so happy and excited when you see that it's sunny outside, that means when it rains, you're going to be sad and frustrated. If you get so happy when your bank account balance is up here, that means when it goes down here, you're going to be frustrated or annoyed, right? So when you see your mind experiencing those conditioned pleasant feelings, you need to be able to cut them off and let them go at the bodily sensations. Even the pleasant feelings usually have tingling across the shoulders, up the back of the neck, and over the skull. Some people call this warm fuzzies, and these are a lot more challenging to be able to be aware of because they feel so good. They're so pleasurable. You kind of want to indulge in them, right? But you got to be able to see the danger in that. Instead of having conditional happiness, you would like to be able to get to unconditional happiness, where your mind can just always be happy, and there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for that happiness to be in the mind. This conditional happiness is temporary. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. It will only exist as long as that particular condition exists. But that condition is not permanent. So that means that you can't have permanent happiness as long as you're having conditional happiness. So that's why you've got to cut off and let go at the bodily sensations. But your mind isn't well developed at a certain point. You're going to need to develop it to that point. So you're going to miss it as a bodily sensation sometimes until your mind is well developed. It can sometimes take a year or two to develop to the point where you can catch it every single time as a bodily sensation. And even then, sometimes it's really challenging for people. So it's going to take you lots of meditation and lots of training your mind of having mindfulness all throughout your day to be able to cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation every time. But if you miss it there, it's going to become a feeling. Now, when the feeling is in the mind, if you notice that with your mindfulness, you'd like to cut that off and let it go. Because if you don't, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. That's the third foundation. That's where you're grumpy and irritable for multiple minutes, hours, days, a week or two, right? You need to cut that off. Don't allow your mind to dwell in that, because if you allow your mind to stay wired that way, it's going to keep doing that. And then the fourth foundation of mindfulness is the mental objects, being aware of the mental objects when they're arising. The 5 hindrances are all mental objects, and the 10 fetters are all mental objects as well. You need to be able to cut those off and let them go, get them out of the mind. But you need to know what they are and what the symptoms of them are, so you can be aware when they're actually arising. So the 4 foundations of mindfulness is a real key, a real catalyst to your enlightenment. So you need to be able to understand what these are and practice them very closely. This is the guard that's watching over your mind. It's like a virus scanner on the computer watching over the hard drive, and if it sees any viruses, it will quarantine it on the hard drive, clean it up, and get it off. Your mindfulness is the same way. It's watching over your mind, and whenever it sees an unwholesome quality, it will apply right effort to cut it off and let it go. And then when your mindfulness sees a wholesome quality, you need to apply right effort to support it, encourage it, bring it to full perfection, full development, so that it can fully permeate in your mind. So this mindfulness is the first foundation, the first factor of enlightenment, meaning this is the first aspect of this tool that the Buddha is giving you. You need to be practicing the mindfulness in order to be able to implement the other tools. Without this mindfulness, you wouldn't be able to implement the other tools, because these next 3 are what the Buddha recommends that you bring into your mind whenever it's experiencing sluggishness or dullness. When you're experiencing any kind of sluggishness or laziness or dullness in the mind, he recommends that you bring in the enlightenment factor of investigation, energy, and joy. What this is going to do is it's going to lift your mind out of that sluggish state and bring it closer to the middle. So investigation is where you have keen interest in investigating the teachings of the Buddha, reading books, coming to classes, watching videos, listening to podcasts, talking with a teacher, talking with each other, things like this. This is like investigation of the teachings. Because the last thing the mind wants to do when it's sluggish and dull and lethargic is investigate the teachings. It's like, I don't want to look at those books. I just want to sit here on the sofa and do nothing, right? Now, you're going to do that from time to time, right? You're going to sit back and relax on the sofa. You're going to sit back and get some rest and relaxation. You need to have that balanced lifestyle. But if that's becoming 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, you're just sitting around being sluggish, you're not meditating, you're not reading books, you're not learning the teachings, your mind is essentially complacent. It's dull and lethargic at that point. So you're going to need to bring in this enlightenment factor of investigation, where you have a keen interest in investigating and examining the teachings. That's going to lift your mind up a bit, because you're going to have to apply the effort to do that, because it's dull and lethargic. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring it up a little bit. As you're investigating the teachings, you're going to see the answers to the problems that you're experiencing in your day-to-day life, and the whole reason why your mind's in that sluggish state. And that's where the energy springs up in the mind. This vitality, this vigor, this willingness to do something, this initiative, this is going to come into the mind, where there's ambition and motivation and enthusiasm. And then that's where you're going to see the joy, the unconditioned joy, start to come into the mind more and more, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for there to be joy. So that's what's going to lift your mind out of that sluggish state, is investigation, and then energy and joy. And you're going to need to apply the effort to do that investigation, so that the mind can have this energy spring up within it. And now this joy can start shining through more and more. But then on the other side of this, with your mindfulness, when you're watching over the mind, if it's not sluggish, what it's going to tend to be is it's going to be excited and overactive. It's going to be on the other side, right? These are the 2 extremes. And when you notice your mind's in this excited, overactive state, that's where you bring in the next 3 factors of enlightenment: tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. This is what's going to bring your mind to the middle. The tranquility is the relaxed, steady, stable peacefulness and stillness, because your mind's doing just the opposite. It's over here bouncing around, overactive. And you like to apply the effort, when you see that with your mindfulness, to bring in the tranquility, the calmness, because you just keep allowing the mind to fire like that. It's just going to keep firing like that. So you need to apply the effort with your mindfulness when you see that overactive state. Oh my gosh, my friend's coming to visit me. Hold on a second. Calm down, calm down. bring in the stillness, right? Then the mind becomes more concentrated. You'll notice this mental alertness, this attentiveness, being able to give your attention to a single object. Because when your mind's bouncing around like that, you can't do that. So you'd like to apply effort to start focusing on one thing at a time, bringing in the concentration. Then there's this mental calmness, this composure, this evenness of temper, the equanimity that you'd like to bring into the mind. And that's what's going to calm it down and bring it to the middle. So you've got this mindfulness that is watching over your mind. And anytime you see it sluggish and dull and lethargic, you use this tool to fine tune it, where you bring in some investigation of the teachings, you bring in the energy, and you bring in the joy, and that brings it to the middle. But then when you see the mind over here being overactive, with your mindfulness, you can see that, and now you bring in the tranquility, the concentration, and the equanimity. You're going to need to apply the effort to do this. It's not going to happen automatically. So this is the 7 factors of enlightenment, which is helping you to fine-tune the mind. So any questions on this here? You have a question? Yeah, go for it.
Can you give some examples of the type of joy Buddha's talking about? I find that joy is associated with specific activities.
Yeah, so that's conditional happiness, where there has to be some condition met in order for the mind to experience happiness. You know, if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, if I have this kind of house, this kind of car, or whatever, if I get to go hiking today, if I get to go shopping today, if I, can do these things, then I will be happy. So that means you're only happy based on that condition. And that condition is not permanent. It's impermanent. So that means when that changes, that means you're not happy anymore. You're in the frustration or agitation or annoyance. So you would like to train your mind to not experience conditional happiness. So whenever you see conditional happiness arising, you would like to apply the effort to cut that off and let it go. This is part of the Eightfold Path, that you watch over your mind with mindfulness. And when you see conditional happiness, you cut it off and let it go. It's like there's this wild weed that's growing, and you've got to cut it back and cut it back and cut it back and cut it back. And eventually you'll uproot it. So if you can restrain your mind when you see its longing, yearning, trying to get that thing in order to get its pleasant feelings, you've got to restrain it and pull it back. And the more that you do that, then this unconditioned joy will start to appear in the mind. One of the ways we talk about this is attaining enlightenment, but another way to say it is that the mind is already enlightened. The natural state of the mind is enlightened. There's these pollutions that are in the way that are hindering you from experiencing it. So you've got to get these pollutions out of the way so the qualities of enlightenment can shine through more and more. It's like if there's the sun, it's always there. It's just that there's clouds blocking it. And when you get the clouds out of the way, the rays of the sun will slowly start to shine through. The only difference in the analogy is the clouds will come back, but by the time you get these pollutions out of your mind, they won't come back any longer. So the qualities of enlightenment, this unconditioned joy, can shine through when you get rid of these pollutions of what's causing the mind to form its conditioned feelings. The mind's forming its conditioned feelings because of personal existence view, because of its doubt, because of its wrong behavior and observances, because of its sensual desire, because of its ill will, desire for form, desire for formless, its conceit, its restlessness, and then ultimately its ignorance. These are the 10 fetters. These are the 10 pollutions that are in the mind. This is what's causing it to keep forming these conditioned feelings. So wherever you see your mind's trying to form that conditioned feeling, or if it already has the conditioned feeling, you cut it off and let it go. You restrain the mind and pull it back. And more, it'll experience unconditioned joy. It's like if there was a post or a pillar and there was animals that were tied to it, they're going to pull and they're going to pull and they're going to pull, trying to go to the river, to the mountains, to the sky, to the jungle, but they're going to keep getting yanked back to the post and the pillar. Eventually, they're going to get yanked back so many times that they're just going to sit down calmly by that post and pillar. So it's the same thing, that when your mind's pulling, you yank it back. And if you keep doing that, where you keep yanking it back over and over and over again, over a consistent long-term period, your mind will just be calm and peaceful and joyful, sitting there at the post and pillar. But as long as it's pulling, you can't be peaceful. You can't be joyful because it's longing, yearning for that thing. And it thinks if I can just get that thing, everything will be perfect in my life. But you've got to pull it back and learn how to practice this middle way where you can gradually walk towards things as a goal, objective, or interest without pulling towards it. And that's where the joy comes in.
Sense of joy is going to be there whether you're cleaning or hiking or sitting, or it's just always, it's not attached to like an activity. It's just there.
Exactly. So when you have attachment, your emotions are attached, meaning I can only be happy if my boyfriend or girlfriend's with me. That's it. I can't be happy in any other situation. So now your happiness is limited because you have all these conditions that have to be met in order for there to be happiness. So you're sabotaging your ability to be happy permanently because all these conditions can't be met permanently. So your ability to be happy shrinks. This is why some people are old and grumpy. Not everybody, but some people are old and grumpy because they have all these expectations, all these things they want in order to be happy. And the likelihood of all those things meeting to be true is very minimal. So their happiness is very minute. But what the Buddha is teaching you to do is get rid of all of that. So now you can just always be happy, whether you're hiking, whether you're taking a shower, whether you're sitting in traffic, whether you're eating a burrito, whether you're, on an airplane with 5 babies crying all around you, you can still be smiling and cheerful because your mind's not forming its feelings based on these external circumstances anymore. Instead, it's just inwardly peaceful. It's inwardly joyful. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Okay, so now we can study the 5 hindrances because I'm going to employ these when I talk about the 5 hindrances. I'm first going to explain to you what the hindrance is, and then I'm going to explain to you the solution of how to fix it. So sensual desire, we've talked about this a bit in this course already, where this is where the mind is longing, yearning through your sense bases, the eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. These are the 6 sense bases where you experience contact. And when you experience contact, the mind is going to see that contact as either agreeable or disagreeable. Because of its sensual desire. It has craving, desire, attachment. When we talk about craving, desire, attachment, it's sensual desire. It's the mind's craving permanently agreeable contact. And it can only be happy if it gets that permanently agreeable contact. And when you experience disagreeable contact, the mind experiences painful feelings or neither painful nor pleasant. And the mind is experiencing this because of the contact through the sense bases. And ultimately, the sensual desire is the root of this, right? So, for example, if you're sitting at a stoplight and a car pulls up to you with music that you like, you might be like, wow, that's my jam. I feel really happy, really excited because you hear this sound and you see it to be agreeable. Because of this sensual desire, the mind is considering this to be an agreeable sound. And you experience conditioned, pleasant feelings there, right? But then it's only a matter of time before the next traffic light, somebody pulls up to you with the music that you don't like, and the mind sees it as disagreeable because of its sensual desire. And now you're angry or frustrated. And normally what we do is we blame that person or we blame the music. We think that they are the ones who are causing us to be frustrated, where in reality, this is the mind's sensual desire. It's craving permanently agreeable contact through the ears in this case. You can have the same thing with the nose. You can be walking down the street. You smell maybe the flowers coming out of a flower shop and you get so excited and wow, that's so wonderful. You get all these conditioned pleasant feelings, but then you walk a few more steps and now you smell the sewer and now you're repulsed. Ah, that's horrible. You think that's so terrible. And now the mind's frustrated. This is because the mind's sensual desire. It's craving permanently agreeable contact, right? So the mind will have sensual desire, and this is going to hinder you from getting to enlightenment because your mind will hold on to things. That glass of wine that you drink every night, your mind won't want to let that go because of its sensual desire. It tastes it through the tongue, and it won't want to let it go. And now the mind is hindered from getting to enlightenment because each time you ingest this alcohol, it's affecting the quality of your mind. That alcohol is affecting your mind. Or there'll be some other central desires that you'll have that your mind won't want to let go of. It'll just be holding on to it, and it'll hinder you from being able to get to enlightenment. So you're going to need to eliminate your central desire. This is one of the fetters. So it's the same things that you guys have learned, but now we're adding in the 7 factors of enlightenment as well. So here, this craving, desire, attachment in the mind is that you're applying the breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity. That's what's helping you to eliminate all cravings, desires, attachments. That the breathing, mindfulness, meditation is when you're focused on the breath, the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back. You're training your mind to let go. Let go, let go. Because with central desire, your mind wants to hold on to things. And then you're doing the same thing with your generosity. You're giving and sharing with the people around you, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. And this is training your mind to let go. Then you would like to guard these doorways. The Buddha refers to this as guarding the doorways to discontentedness. Because while it's central desire in the mind that's causing the discontent feelings, there's going to be contact through the doorway, right? So the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself are the doorways. This is where I gave you guys the example, I think it was in this class, where at one time I was trying to get rid of coffee, and I was 8 weeks into this, and I had been giving up coffee, and I was going 1 week, and then I'd have one, and then I'd go 2 weeks, and I'd have one, and 3 weeks. And I got to about 8 weeks, and I was feeling all conceited. My mind was becoming concentrated. I was feeling all focused. I was like, wow, look at me, get rid of all these attachments. I'm going to get to enlightenment. I was feeling all conceited. I walked down the street, and I turned the corner, and I got a whiff of coffee in the nose. And then I was right in the coffee shop, waiting in line, sitting there talking to myself. Why are you doing this? You're so stupid. You're just going to get a headache. You're going to have difficulty sleeping. Why are you doing this? And I got right up in front of the line. Iced coffee, please, right? Even though I was sitting there talking to myself the whole time. And then eventually I took a couple sips and I threw this away, right? It was the last coffee I had. But afterwards, when I was reflecting on this, I was like, why is it that I went in there? What was that? And then when I looked at it, I was looking at the 6 sense spaces because I knew there was some doorway that this mind central desire got triggered. And I was like, it's the nose. I got that odor, and the mind got pulled in there because it still had central desire. So from that point forward, I started guarding my nose. I was guarding the doorway. So as I was walking down the street for the next 3 months or so, I would look in front of me to see if there was any coffee shops down the street. And if I saw a coffee shop, I would switch to the other side of the street, and I would walk down that side of the street. And this is the effort that I had to apply in order to get rid of this craving. And I only needed to do it for about 3 months while my mind was in that sensitive period that I was trying to get rid of this craving. Now I can go to a coffee shop. Sometimes students invite me and I sit there and I drink my water or my smoothie or whatever, and they ask me all kinds of questions about the Buddhist teachings. I smell the coffee all day long and I have no interest in actually drinking it. But during that period of time where I had that particular central desire, my mind was sensitive and I was making an unwise decision to drink this coffee, right? So this is why these doorways are so important for you to know about them, because yes, it's central desire, and you'd like to use breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity to be able to eliminate it. But in some cases, you're going to need to look down to the level of where's the contact coming from so that you can eliminate this contact and give your mind a fighting chance, so to speak, right? You would like to give your mind a chance to be able to let go of this craving, because if you keep exposing it to the contact, it's going to be very challenging to be able to eliminate that particular craving. So that's why guarding the doorways is so important. Now, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the body are usually pretty straightforward for people, and they understand those because you learn those as part of your science class if you took biology classes or anything like that. But the mind is one that the Buddha adds in here, because you can actually experience discontentedness without there being any contact through the eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, or the body. Instead, it can be just the mind itself. So for example, let's just say you're sitting in an airport with your eyes closed even, and you're just sitting there with nothing going on whatsoever, but your mind is thinking about something in the past. Or say you're laying in bed at night and you're thinking about something in the past that was either painful or pleasurable for you. Well, now in the present moment, you could have either pleasurable feelings or painful feelings based on something that's happened in the past. There hasn't been any contact through the eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, or the body. It's only the mind itself thinking about this thing in the past. Some people would call this trauma, right? That there's been some experience in the past and now they're experiencing feelings about that today. And people think this is permanent. They think they can never get over this at all. All this is the mind clinging to this experience and forming feelings today based on something that happened in the past. You can actually train your mind to let that go, where you'll remember these things happened, but you won't actually form feelings based on it. So that's the sixth sense base, because your mind can actually experience discontentedness without any contact through any of the other senses, but just thinking about something in the past or the future as well, right? You could be thinking about something that's going to happen in the future. Like maybe you're going on a holiday and you get so excited about that thing in the future, and now there's conditioned pleasant feelings. You're just sitting there thinking about it. There's no contact at all. Or maybe you're thinking about this presentation that you need to give to your boss and your boss's boss and your boss's boss's boss in the next week or two, and now you have all this anxiety and stress in the present moment. There hasn't been any contact through any of the other sense bases. It's just the mind thinking about this thing in the future. So you're going to need to be able to guard that so that when you see your mind doing that, you can apply the effort to cut that off and let it go. So it's breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity that's building that internal mechanism to be able to cut off and let go. But it's your mindfulness that's watching over the mind, that whenever you see your mind longing, yearning, or wanting to form these feelings, when you're getting this contact through the sense bases, you've got to be able to cut that off and let it go. And the way this looks early in practice is you usually just redirect the mind. Just take it in a different direction. If you're sitting there watching the news and you're watching it through your eyes, right? You're having contact through the eyes, you're having contact through the ear, and now you hear and you see something that's disagreeable to you on the news, and you're noticing the frustration starting to arise. That's your mindfulness, the bodily sensations. You now cut off the news, go for a bike ride, go for a walk, go to the kitchen, get a glass of water. That's redirecting your mind. And over time, you won't have to do this. You can just do it internally within your mind, where you can cut off and let go. And when you do that enough, eventually you'll uproot that particular central desire, and you can just sit there and watch the news. And sure, you disagree with it. You would rather not see that murder happen, or you would rather not see those children suffer, but you won't form feelings based on it. You'll just understand that this is what's happening in the world, and you won't experience any particular painful feelings because of it. That's where your mind's liberated. That's where you're free. No matter what contact you're having through the sense bases, you can maintain your calmness and composure, your peacefulness and your joy. Okay, so this is the first central desire. This is what's actually going to hinder you, because your mind's not going to want to let go of certain central desires, certain things that you're holding on to. You're not going to want to let that particular thing go. Maybe it's a certain type of clothes or a certain type of product that you use. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to introduce a lot of impermanence. It doesn't mean that you never use those things again. But for example, if you're using the same deodorant every single day and you like that smell and you like the way it feels under your arms, you're going to need to switch for a period of time and train your mind to be content and peaceful and happy with a different type of deodorant. Ultimately, you might end up coming back to the one that you prefer, but you're going to need to introduce some impermanence so your mind doesn't crave that permanence. Or say there's a special pillow or a certain blanket that you always sleep with and it feels so great and you just can't imagine sleeping with anything else. You're going to need to set that aside for a period of time and train your mind to be able to fall asleep and enjoy sleeping even without that, right? So there's going to be certain things that your mind's having pleasure from through the senses that you're going to need to let go of. And then ultimately, after you train your mind to not have that thing and still be peaceful and joyful, you might decide to start using that thing again. But your mind needs to be willing to let go, because if you're not willing to let go of these central desires, you can't ever get to permanent peace and permanent joy, because you can only be happy when you have that thing that your mind is holding on to. Okay? You guys understand this one? Yeah? Any questions here? No questions? Okay. The next one is ill will. These are oftentimes shown together whenever the Buddha is teaching, because when your mind's getting its central desires fulfilled, that's where the pleasant feelings are being experienced, the conditioned pleasant feelings. But when you're not getting what you want, that's where the ill will comes in. That's the anger, the hatred, the bitterness, the hostility, the aggression, the resentment, the frustration, agitation, annoyance. That's what this is going to, that's what the mind's going to experience when it's not getting its central desires fulfilled. So with that central desire, if it gets agreeable contact, it gets happy, excited about that. But when it gets disagreeable contact, it gets the painful feelings, and now this ill will can arise. And when this ill will is arising, if you act upon it, then you're producing massive amounts of unwholesome karma, because you're putting out ill will into the world. You're treating individuals through this ill will. And now by causing harm through your ill will, this harm's going to come back to you. You can look in your life and see where you've done that, where you've been bitter and harsh and hostile or aggressive. It's produced unwholesome results for you. So getting rid of this ill will is going to help you to get closer to enlightenment, but it will hinder you from being able to experience enlightenment, because the mind will oftentimes hold on to that and think that somehow that's beneficial for you to have ill will towards others. So that hatred, that frustration, that agitation towards others. So this needs to be eliminated from the mind. And what's doing this is the loving kindness meditation, which we did, I think it was on Tuesday. We did that. We were doing it each morning throughout the course. We started on Tuesday, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning. We did loving kindness meditation. That's filling up your mind, rewiring it to be loving and kind. And then there's the practice of loving kindness in your daily life through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, interacting with people in a loving and kind way. You can't meditate your way to the end of anger. It's not possible. You can't go into a cave and just sit there and meditate and get to enlightenment. It's not possible. Sometimes people think that's what the Buddha did, that he went off into the forest, he stayed there for 6 years, got to enlightenment, and then he came out and he was enlightened. This isn't true. The Buddha interacted with people every single day. He had to get food. That's how he got food, is that he interacted with people. He went outside the forest and people gave him donations and he ate food. So he was interacting with people every single day. That's how you get to enlightenment, is you need to train your mind, yes, with all of these techniques, but you're going to need to interact with people in a loving and kind way. That's where the real transformation is occurring. So you're going to need to pay attention to your intentions, your speech, your actions, and then even your livelihood, and make sure that you purify that as well. So you're going to need loving kindness injected into all of this, because that's going to bring your mind away from all of this. Any questions here on this one? No questions here? Okay. Then the third one here is complacency. If you read really old translations of the teachings of the Buddha, you will see people using the phrase sloth and torpor. So I didn't think this was the best word to use, because it really doesn't explain what it is that the Buddha was teaching here. This might have meant something to people long in the past, but today we would just call this complacency, right? That you're not interested in being complacent. That's going to hinder you from getting to enlightenment. If you're complacent, you can understand complacency in terms of not meditating. You're complacent, right? You're not going to get to enlightenment if you're complacent. If you're not reading books, you're complacent. If you're not coming to learn at the temple, you're complacent. If you're not consulting with a teacher, the mind's complacent. We can understand this. This is like major complacency. But when the Buddha talks about complacency in his teachings, he takes it all the way to this level. He says that if you have an unwholesome thought and you do nothing about it, your mind is complacent. Right? So if you're walking down the street and you start judging other people and you start looking down on them with conceited thoughts and you do nothing about it, the mind's complacent. If you're having other thoughts, central desire, there's certain central desires that come up in the mind. Like that you're attached to that chocolate cake and your mind's longing, yearning for the chocolate cake, but you hightail it for the restaurant anyway to get that piece of chocolate cake and you didn't restrain the mind, your mind's complacent. Right? So you need to be able to practice where you have dedication, determination, and diligence, where you don't allow the mind to be complacent. So we can understand those big ones, like not meditating, not reading books, not learning in classes. Yeah, that's complacency. But also, if you do nothing about those unwholesome thoughts, that's complacency too, because if you allow them to stay in the mind, they're just going to continue to stay in the mind, right? So you need to be able to be observant with your mindfulness that whenever you see this complacency, that you apply the enlightenment factors of investigation, energy, and joy. That's what's going to bring that mind out of that sluggish state. Those are the 7 factors of enlightenment. These are number 2, 3, and 4, right? So with your mindfulness and awareness of mind, wherever you see your minds being complacent and dull and lethargic, you would like to bring in this investigation, this energy and joy, and that's what's going to lift it out of that complacency. Complacency is a big issue. I see it a lot. Even in this human realm, even though this is the ideal realm, that we have built-in motivation because we experience painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, we tend to be motivated more than other beings in the world to be able to get to enlightenment. We still have a massive amount of complacency in the mind. So you're going to need to be aware of that and not allow your mind to continue to have that, and be diligent and dedicated and determined towards your enlightenment. This is really a full-time job, getting to enlightenment, right? You're going to need to be training your mind at all times. You know, when you're in the shower, when you're laying in bed at night, when you're waking up in the morning, when you're driving in traffic, when you're at the airport, when you're sitting on the airplane, you're constantly watching over the mind. Eventually, it's effortless for you to do this. But when you're bringing your practice up to that point, it can seem like a lot of work. It can seem very exhausting because your mind really doesn't want to do this stuff. It's very complacent because remember, in the Four Noble Truths, you learn that the mind craves permanence, right? Another way to say that is that the mind doesn't like impermanence. It doesn't like change. Well, the very first thing that you learn on the path to enlightenment is you need to change. What you're doing right now isn't working. Right? And the mind's like, no, I don't want to change, right? That's the complacency. So what I used to do is I used to treat the mind like it's kind of like a 3-year-old kid throwing a temper tantrum. It's really helpful to see that there's the body and then there's the mind. And then the combination of these two things is called the person. The person is looking at the mind is like, hey, buddy, you need to get some training. Your mind's like, nah, we're not doing that. I'm going to be over here. I'm going to be complacent. And the person's like, come on, dude, you got to get some training. The mind's like, nah, I'm not doing that. That's the complacency, right? So now when you start training your mind will experience, improvement, and you'll really enjoy that improvement. But there's going to be times where it's struggling and it's going to throw a temper tantrum and it's going to be like, no, I don't want to go to those teachings. I don't want to do that meditation. Will you just stop that? Right? And the person, the adult in the room, has got to look at the mind and say, hey, buddy, come on, you got to go. Right? So understand your mind's going to throw a temper tantrum. That's the complacency that the mind's trying to hold on, and it doesn't really want to do this training. The person is interested in it. The person's like, hey, dude, your room is a mess. You've got to clean this up. And that mind is like, nope, not going to do that. You can't make me do it. And the person's got to be like, yes, I can. Right? You've got to build in this determination, dedication, and diligence. Okay, so it's the enlightenment factors of investigation, energy, and joy that's going to help you to be able to do that. Any questions on this one? Okay, it looks like Julie has a question. What is the difference between ego and ill will? Can it present the same way? What ego is that personal existence view and conceit where there's arrogance, there's measuring and comparing, putting yourself above people and below people. And now the mind can have ill will at the same time where there's now ill will towards someone. But these are two separate things. The ego is like the judging, thinking of yourself as superior and inferior. But then, of course, there's that personal existence view part of it too, where the mind is clinging to a self-image and a self-identity. So we can think of the personal existence view and the conceit kind of like craving, even though central desire is its own thing. You can think about it as the mind's craving and clinging, where the ill will is the result of the mind not getting what it wants and what it expects. That's where the ill will is coming in, where there's the bitterness, the harshness, and the hostility. The source of the ill will is ultimately the craving, the central desire. And one of the things that the mind can crave, that's where the ego is, one of the things the mind can crave is to be above people, or it's putting itself below people. And then that's when the ill will come up, when it's not getting what it wants. So if you go into a social situation and someone has this chip on their shoulder and they want to be above everybody, they want to be the alpha male or the alpha female, and nobody's feeding into that, this person can then become hostile and bitter. That's their ill will arising because their mind's not getting what it wants because the ego's there. So these are two separate things. Okay. Don't see any other questions. Okay, so now we'll talk about number 4, which is restlessness and worry. In the 10 fetters, this is just called restlessness, where the mind is overactive. There's this confused, distracted, restless state of mind. In the mind's worry is where you can worry about your own unskillful conduct. As you're starting to learn about these teachings, you will sometimes maybe have worry in your mind where you will see all the unwholesome things you've done in the past or that you're currently doing, and you'll worry about all of those things, where you need to be able to understand that this is a normal part of the progression to enlightenment, but this will hinder you from enlightenment because the restlessness is like the overactivity of the mind, where the worry is the anxiety of the mind, right? So this is, we could call it, overactivity and anxiety as well. So this is going to hinder an individual from getting to enlightenment. And the way that you solve it is through tranquility, concentration, and equanimity, because the mind's over there bouncing around with this restlessness, with this worry, and you'd like to bring in that calmness, the composure, the evenness of temper, the steadiness, that concentration, those 7 factors of enlightenment. Number, that 5, 6, and 7 would be the tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. That's what's going to bring it down out of that. And you're going to need to apply the effort to do that. So this restlessness and worry will hinder an individual from getting to enlightenment, because once you get rid of sensual desire, that's going to help you to be able to see more and more of the restlessness, the overactivity of the mind, but there's still going to be some residual clinging in the mind. And that's where this restlessness can be in there. So you need to pay attention to that with your mindfulness and not have this worry with every little mistake that you make. You're going to make mistakes between here and enlightenment, and you learn from that. As long as your ultimate goal is to cultivate wisdom, there's no such thing as failure. Everything on the path to enlightenment is about cultivation of wisdom. So you're going to make mistakes between here and enlightenment. It's not possible for you to get to enlightenment in any other way. You can't learn teachings, snap your fingers, and instantly be perfect. So you're going to make mistakes. But in each one of those situations, as you have missteps, learn from it. Cultivate wisdom. And that's what's going to help you the next time, right? So you don't have to worry about every little mistake that you make. Just learn from it and cultivate wisdom. Because when you're cultivating wisdom, there's no such thing as failure. It just doesn't exist, because the ultimate goal is to cultivate wisdom. So even if you are starting a business and you run that business for 2 years, and then ultimately you decide to close that business, well, you haven't failed. You just decided after 2 years, based on the situation, it didn't make sense for you to go forward. But in those 2 years, you learned a tremendous amount of things. So that wasn't a failure. That was you learning. So let's just say you'd like to start a business in the future. Well, now you've got more experience, and you can use that wisdom from those 2 years to now be able to apply it to this next business that you start. So when the ultimate goal is to cultivate wisdom, there's no such thing as failure, right? You're going to just learn all the way along the way, right? So no worries about your unwise moral conduct. You are going to need to improve that. Don't be, complacent about your unwise moral conduct, but no need to worry about it. Just look at it as part of the process of learning and growing and developing. And it's these enlightenment factors of tranquility, concentration, equanimity that's going to help you calm the mind when you see it's restless and it's worried. It'll help calm the mind and bring it to the middle. Then the last one here is doubt. This is the same one from the 10 fetters. This will hinder you from getting to enlightenment. If you doubt the teachings of the Buddha, if you doubt that the Buddha even existed, if you doubt the community that you're part of, if you doubt your teacher, if you doubt your own ability to get to enlightenment, it will hinder you from getting to enlightenment. And you might actually have doubt right now. It's normal. People have doubt. They come to the path to enlightenment with doubt, right? Because how could you have confidence in something if you don't even know what that something is, right? If you've never studied the teachings of the Buddha, how could you have confidence in them, right? So when people come to the path, they will typically have doubt. I know I did. So this doubt will block you or obstruct you from getting to enlightenment because somebody won't even look at the teachings. They'll be disinterested. It's like, I'm not even going to look at those teachings. I'm not even going to participate in that community. I'm not even going to talk to that teacher. I'm not even going to make this effort because I don't think I can do it, right? That's what the mind does with its doubt. But what you can do is you can actually harness this doubt. You can turn it into a positive, because the way you get to the elimination of doubt is not through blind belief or faith or anything like that. You get to the elimination of doubt through investigation and examination of the teachings. If you investigate and examine the teachings and you're not believing them, but you're reflecting on them to verify if they're true or false, and then you're practicing the teachings, more and more you're going to see the condition of your mind and your life improving. And eventually you'll get to the point where you won't have doubt anymore. It's going to take you time to get to that, but you won't have doubt anymore because you'll have seen significant improvement in your mind and in your life. Because there are certain situations where you once used to get angry and frustrated, and you won't get angry and frustrated anymore in that situation. And you'll know that it's these teachings that are actually helping you. So you can harness this doubt by turning this into an inquisitive mind. If you have doubt, just admit it to yourself that you have doubt about whether these teachings are true or false. And now roll up your sleeves, sink in your teeth, start to investigate the teachings. And as you investigate the teachings and examine them, as you reflect on them to verify if they're true or false, and then you practice them, that's where you're going to see all this progress, right? So the Buddha never said, just believe me, just believe me, just believe me. He didn't say that. He said just the opposite. He said, come, investigate my teachings. Come see for yourself, right? Because he knew that these teachings actually led to his enlightenment. So he knew that it would lead to your enlightenment too. So he said, come on, come investigate the teachings. Come take a look, right? That's what he said. He said, come see for yourself, right? So that's what you need to do in order to get rid of this doubt. So if you have doubt, you don't have to feel guilty or shameful. Don't have blind belief, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it. Instead, investigate and examine the teachings. That's what's actually going to lead to your enlightenment. That's what's going to allow you to get rid of this doubt. And now more and more, you're going to have confidence in the Buddha. You'll know this individual live because you'll see his teachings around you everywhere. You'll see that his teachings actually work. You'll have confidence in those teachings. You'll have confidence in the community that you're part of because you're going to see more and more people practicing the teachings better and better as time goes on. And then you'll have confidence in your teacher because you'll see that that person helped you to be able to get to this improved state of mind. And then you'll have confidence in your own ability to get to enlightenment because you're actually doing it. You're seeing the improvement. You see the progress. You won't be enlightened yet by the time you eliminate doubt, but you'll be well on your way. And you'll have confidence in your own ability to keep learning and keep growing and keep developing because you're seeing that progress. Okay? So any questions on restlessness and worry and doubt? No questions here? Okay. So there's other hindrances besides these 5. The Buddha has different lists that he will use. These are the top 5, but you'll see other variations of this too. I think it's like 16, like a more detailed level. He has I think it's called 16. But anyway, if you see those, you can investigate those too if you like. But there's actually one hindrance of all hindrances. This is like the hindrance of all hindrances. He doesn't mention it here because it's just so obvious in all of his teachings. The biggest hindrance to your enlightenment is referred to as ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom. That's the biggest hindrance, because the mind will tend to hold on to what it currently thinks about the world, and it will be unwilling to be able to penetrate into learning and growing and understanding this wisdom that the Buddha is sharing. So this unknowing of true reality, this lack of wisdom, this confusion, some people call it delusion, misperception, misunderstanding that the mind has about how the world truly works, that's the biggest hindrance of all hindrances. And a lot of people translate it as ignorance. I think that's a derogatory word. The Buddha would have never used that. been degrading or disrespectful or disparaging to others. Instead, he would have used things like the unknowing of true reality, or the lack of wisdom, or confusion or misunderstanding. That's what the mind has in the unenlightened state. It just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. That's why we walked around for so long thinking that it's other people who are causing us to be angry or frustrated. But you learn through the teachings of the Buddha in a way that you can independently verify that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world that's causing you to be angry or frustrated. It's what's going on within the mind. So that lack of wisdom will hinder you from being able to get to enlightenment. And that's why everything you're doing on this path is to cultivate wisdom. Okay. So what I usually do at the end of this talk, because right mindfulness is so important, is I make sure that students have an opportunity to ask questions about the 4 foundations of mindfulness and understanding right mindfulness. Do you guys have any questions on the 4 foundations of mindfulness, or mindfulness, how to practice this? We were talking about it earlier, but I just usually pause here at the end of this talk to see if you guys have any questions, because that's really important. In order to be able to eliminate these 5 hindrances, you need mindfulness. You need awareness of mind.
I think that personally, the separation between the person and the mind and the body is starting to set in. So, for example, we're practicing mindfulness meditation. What's running the ship here?
The person.
And that's a combination of body and mind.
Yep.
But the mind is also separate entirely.
Yeah. You'll be able to see this. I think most people experience this on their way to enlightenment. I haven't heard anybody that hasn't experienced this, but if you're sitting and meditating, or whatever position you're in, you'll get to a point where you'll be meditating and it's almost like the mind is looking at itself from like the corner of the room. It's almost like you're levitating and you're looking down at yourself, and you'll be able to see how separate the mind is, that the mind's kind of off over here looking down at this being who's meditating. And this is where you can see the separation between the body and the mind, that they're 2 completely separate things, because the body is sitting there meditating and you've got your eyes closed, but actually you can see this being from like the corner of the room meditating. And this helps you to be able to see that separation.
In that way would be like is the mind observing from a third person?
Yeah. The mind is, there's been stories of people who were like considered technically brain dead, where the body was technically dead and they were on life support at a hospital. And the family came in and the doctor was consulting with them and suggesting to pull the plug, for example. And the family ultimately decided not to pull the plug. And the person, the body, the mind, was sitting there, laying there in the bed the whole time, hearing this conversation. And ultimately the family didn't pull the plug, and this person ends up waking up from their state whatever time later, and they're like, hey, thank you so much for not pulling the plug, because I could hear that conversation the entire time. The mind was there and present and able to understand, but there just wasn't anything with the body that I could do in order to be able to let you guys know that I was still there, right? That there was this being that still was in existence. So this is where those types of situations in your own direct experience, you can see that the body is one thing. It can be technically brain dead, but the mind is actually still functioning and is still active, and it's not physically in any one spot. That when you're meditating and the mind's off over here and you can still see this being that's meditating, these types of things help you to be able to see this separation between the body, the mind, and now the combination is the person.
And the person, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, because the Buddha doesn't talk about like souls.
No.
Right? It's not like this permanent thing. It's just a combination of both that
Right. It's a brand new body, a brand new mind every single time. He doesn't say there is a soul, but he doesn't say there isn't a soul either. He just leaves it as an undeclared teaching. But there's definitely a body. We can independently verify that. We can definitely verify that there is a mind. We know that. And now we can see the combination of these two things. There's this third thing that's looking at the mind. I'm like, dude, you need to get some training. And the mind's like, no, I'm not doing that. So you can definitely see these three things and distinguish between them. So that's what the Buddha calls it: the body, the mind, and the person. Some people, you'll hear them call it the observer. You might have heard this. That's what the Buddha calls the person. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, in the cycle of rebirth, you don't, is it a different mind?
Yeah. So in the original teachings in the Pali Canon, the word samsara is being used, and people have been translating that to the cycle of rebirth. But there's really nothing that's being reborn. If you look at the Buddha's teachings on samsara, he talks about a new body and a new mind every single time. So the way that I encourage people to think of this is the cycle of new existence, because it's a new existence every single time. It's not a rebirth of anything. The only thing that's going from one life to the next is cravings and residual memories. This is where I gave that analogy of the cardboard box, right? If at the end of this life, there's contents in the cardboard box representing the mind, when that dissolves, the contents have to find a new cardboard box. So now they're in this new cardboard box. And that's why this being has memories of the previous being's life, because it has craving and residual memories from the previous life. But it's a brand new body and a brand new mind every single time. So when people are using the phrase rebirth, it's not really accurate. I still use it because everybody is familiar with that, but the way that I think about it, and I know that the way the Buddha taught it, is the cycle of new existence. When people talk about reincarnation, they're usually talking about a soul involved there. And right away, you know that the Buddha never taught that. So when people are talking about reincarnation and they talk about it being the same being every single time, you know that they haven't penetrated into the teachings of the Buddha very closely, because the Buddha never taught there is a soul or there isn't a soul. And when he talked about samsara, he didn't talk about we're the same being every single time. So some of these traditions that are out there, they think you're exactly the same being every single time, just with a different body. And this isn't true. This isn't what the Buddha taught. And you can independently verify this for yourself, that it's a brand new body and a brand new mind every single time. So I'd think of it as the cycle of new existence if I was you. If you get into this first book, in the chapter, it's called Misunderstandings of the Teachings of the Buddha, I talk about this, and I help you to be able to see about this cycle of new existence. That's a better way to think about it.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions anywhere. Okay. So let's see what time it is. So it's 10:38. This is the next topic that I have to teach. We could take a break here if you guys like. This will take me all of probably 10 minutes to teach it to you. And then there's another probably 5 minutes of content after that, and we'll actually be done for the whole day. Would you guys like to just keep going, or would you like a little break? Keep going? Not everyone's going to vote the same way, right? That would be permanence. You guys okay if I keep going? Because then we'll probably be finished by 11 o'clock. You guys good? Okay, yeah, if you need a break, if you need some water at a bathroom, feel free to help yourself, okay? All right, so what I'm going to teach you guys is, I was going to say if everybody got up and left, we would just stop, but there's only two people. Okay, just two people, all right. So this next topic is how to determine if you have attained enlightenment, because on your journey to enlightenment, you'd like to be able to know if you've actually attained enlightenment or not, right? Like, how could you ever be working towards a particular goal if you didn't know what that goal was, right? So in the foundational classes, I teach you what is enlightenment so that you know what enlightenment is. What I'm doing in this class, in this course, is I'm teaching you how to determine if you've actually attained enlightenment, because normally students are learning along with me for multiple courses, and now you might be at the point where you'd like to know how to determine if you've attained enlightenment. Well, if someone's attained enlightenment, they will never stop practicing these teachings, right? It's not like a finish line that you work really hard to run the marathon and then it's like, oh, finally I can stop running, right? That's not the way the path to enlightenment is. By the time you get to enlightenment, you've upgraded the operating system in your mind. Your mind no longer functions with anger and frustration. It just physically is impossible. If you tried to force yourself to be angry, you wouldn't be able to do it as an enlightened being. So while it's a lot of work to get to the point where you're actually enlightened, there's a certain amount of work to get there. By the time you get there, it's effortless. You're practicing these teachings effortlessly. It's actually easier to be kind and polite and respectful to people. It takes a lot of work to be a grumpy, irritable, nasty person, doesn't it? So by the time you get to enlightenment, it's actually effortless to practice these teachings. But on your way there, it can feel very challenging because you're having to move the mind in directions that it really doesn't want to move in because it's got that central desire in there. So you'd never stop practicing the teachings. You'd be fully practicing the Eightfold Path to perfection, which includes the three universal truths, the Four Noble Truths, and the five precepts. You'd be doing this effortlessly to perfection. Where on your way to enlightenment, to speak gentle to every single person in your life and every single situation, to speak gentle, that's very challenging in the unenlightened state. But by the time you get to enlightenment, it's so easy to be gentle with every single person, for example, right? Because you learn those 5 factors of well-spoken speech, right? So you'd be practicing the Eightfold Path to perfection. You will have fully attained enlightenment as an arahant when you've eliminated all the 10 fetters. So in order to eliminate the 10 fetters, you need to know what they are. You need to know the symptoms of them. You need to know how to eliminate them. And you need to know how to know that you've eliminated them. That's what I'm going to teach in our August retreat. We have a retreat coming up in August where I'm going to spend an hour to an hour and a half on each individual fetter. So in order to get to an arahant as an enlightened being, you would need to know each of these individual fetters, what they are, the symptoms, how to eliminate them, and how to know that you've actually eliminated them. And you will have fully eliminated them out of the mind. That's why the mind's so peaceful and so joyful, because those pollutions don't exist anymore. You have fully cultivated and be completely practicing what's called the Brahma Viharas. These are 4 healthy mental states. They're loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. I teach these in the various programs that I teach. The Harmony and Relationships course, we actually focus on that. In the group learning program, we learned that. So it's in this first volume in chapter 14, where you learn about each of these 4 healthy mental states because they're counteracting certain unwholesome mental states. So for example, loving kindness is counteracting anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions. Compassion, which is concern for the misfortune of others, that's eliminating the indifference and the anxiety and worry. Because when you're not practicing compassion, you'll have indifference where you're like, I don't care about that homeless person. It's not my mom. It's not my dad. It's not my brother or sister. I don't care, right? That's the indifference. But you'll be on the other side of that too, where it's like, oh my gosh, those kids don't have food. What am I going to do? Oh my gosh, how are they going to eat? You'll be so worried and have anxiety. So you need to bring it to the middle where you have compassion, where there's concern for the misfortune of others. So I teach that. And these others like sympathetic joy, that's joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is the opposite of envy and jealousy, right? So you're going to need to bring that in. And then there's equanimity, which is calmness and composure, evenness of temper, especially in difficult situations. So you're going to need to learn what these things are and how to practice them on a day-to-day basis. They're referred to as the Brahma Viharas. I tend to think of them as the 4 healthy mental states, but there's a history here of why this Brahma Viharas is used. So if you're interested, I'll share that with you. Then by the time you get to enlightenment, you will be fully practicing the 7 factors of enlightenment. Even though this isn't to determine whether you are enlightened or you aren't enlightened, you will be practicing all of those. So there's mindfulness or awareness of mind. There's going to be investigation, examination of the teachings. There's going to be energy and joy in the mind. There's going to be tranquility. There's going to be concentration, and there's going to be equanimity in the mind by the time you get to enlightenment. But you're no longer using it to lift the mind out of the sluggish state. You're no longer using it to bring the mind out of the excited state. It's just that the mind's always in the middle and it's practicing all of these 7 factors. So even though it's not to determine whether you are enlightened or you aren't enlightened, it's a tool to fine tune the mind. An enlightened being will be practicing all 5 or all 7 of the 7 factors of enlightenment. You'll know that you've attained enlightenment because you'll have eliminated 100% of all your discontentedness. That's the biggest indicator. It'll be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. There's no discontentedness in the mind at all. Not even the slightest ickiness. You just have like a slight little ickiness in your mind, maybe. You don't even have that as an enlightened being. Your mind's just always bright, cheerful, glad, and uplifted at all times. There's not even the slightest little ickiness. You can't even be in a bad mood anymore. It's physically impossible for you to experience that. So that's the big indicator that you've actually attained enlightenment. And the Buddha refers to this as final knowledge, that when you've gotten to enlightenment, you've attained final knowledge, meaning you will understand every single thing about the path to enlightenment. There won't be any aspect of the path to enlightenment that you don't understand. You would have fully upgraded your mind to this enlightened mental state. It's like upgrading your operating system on the computer, right? When we first upgrade our operating system, I don't know if you guys were around when computers were upgrading and they were drastically changing their operating systems. Sometimes when you would go from one operating system to another for about 2 weeks or so, it was very cumbersome. It was very challenging because it's like, where did they put that thing? Where is it at? And you're kind of looking around. But then eventually, even though you might have hemmed and hawed on your way to upgrading to that operating system, once you got up and running on that new operating system, it's like, whoa, this is so much easier. Why didn't they do it this way to begin with, right? So it's the same thing. It's like we're kind of like in the unenlightened state on this old software, this old archaic software, unenlightened 1.0. And now you got to go through these incremental upgrades to get to enlightenment 9.0. Right? And you're trying to learn all these different software upgrades and enhancements to get to this point where you're fully operating on this Enlightenment 9.0. And now when you're up and running on that, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier. But you'll fully understand the entire path. You'll understand the entire operating system. That's how you got to enlightenment. So the Buddha refers to this as final knowledge, that you fully understand the entire path. So while we talk about the eightfold path, because that's what's going to get you to enlightenment, by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be practicing the tenfold path. There's 2 extra factors that an enlightened being is practicing. It's called right wisdom and right liberation. There's nothing to teach you there in terms of what you need to practice, because as a result of fully perfecting the eightfold path, you will then be practicing the tenfold path. What right wisdom is that you fully know the path to enlightenment. You have the wisdom. You've attained final knowledge. You fully understand the entire path. What right liberation is that the mind's fully liberated, that it's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. So it's the eightfold path that you focus on learning and growing and developing. And when you perfect that, the mind will then be practicing the tenfold path, which has these extra 2 factors of right wisdom and right liberation. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you will be practicing the tenfold path. You will have fully perfected the eightfold path, and you will then have right wisdom, which is final knowledge, and you will then be practicing right liberation, where your mind's fully liberated. It's completely peaceful and joyful. And you'll know that to be the case because for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the mind's completely peaceful, not even the slightest little bit of ickiness. So this is how you'll know that your mind is enlightened. Any questions on this? No questions here? Okay. All right. So now, just a short little bit. Some of you guys might have actually seen this before. I usually share this at the end of every class to help you understand how to integrate the teachings into your life. Because if you've come here for however amount of time that you've come here to learn, and you take what I'm sharing here and you just listen and you understand, and then you go home and you do nothing, okay, it was a wonderful time spending time with you, but you're not going to experience the results. But if you take what it is that I'm teaching you here and you actually integrate it into your life, that's where you're going to see the real results. That's where you're going to see the real progress. Nobody's going to get to enlightenment in a 5-day course. It's just not possible. But if you integrate the teachings into your life, slowly but surely over multiple years, you will make your way to enlightenment. So what I've got here is how to do that, how to over multiple years develop a consistent practice of how to integrate the teachings into your life, making your way to enlightenment. So the first thing is you would like to attend weekly classes, either in person or nowadays we have online, and attend in-depth learning opportunities like this on an as-needed basis. So on Sundays, I have the group learning program where at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Thai time, I teach for just like an hour, hour and a half each Sunday, right? And what I do is I go chapter by chapter in this book over a 7-month period. I just go chapter by chapter by chapter. And no matter where you are in the world, you can attend. You can attend here live. You can join through our live stream, through our Zoom, through our YouTube, Facebook. And if you can't attend live, you can actually watch the recording. I have this one student, she rides her bike all over the world and she sleeps in tents. At nighttime, she gets on the internet and she watches the videos of where I've been teaching, and then she emails me and sends me questions, right? So I've set up in a way that no matter what your lifestyle it is, you can learn these teachings. You can sit here in Chiang Mai and learn live like you guys are doing, but you can also do it when you're in a tent in some other far distant place, riding around on your bike. You know, that's all she does is she rides her bike around and sleeps in tents, right? She can still learn the teachings. So I've set up in a way that you can learn in person or online, and you'd like to trickle the teachings into the mind little by little by little. You'd like to read this first book, if you haven't already, just about 10 or 20 minutes a day. It's like taking a small little bite, because you're not reading this book for completion. You're reading it to be able to independently verify. You need to verify each part of the teachings. And if you sit down and read for an hour or 2 or 3, that's too much information for you to be able to independently verify. So that's why you like to take little bits and pieces. Sometimes people like to plow through a book because they like to get to the end of the book and they like to know what the ending of the story is, right? Because it's like a novel and you're trying to hurry up and find out what the ending of the story is. So I'm going to tell you what the end of this story is from this book. The end of the story of this book is you get to enlightenment. That's the end of the story, right? So now just take your time and gradually make your way through the book, and then you'll be able to see you're slowly progressing to enlightenment. Okay, so you'd like to just read little by little each day. Then you'd like to be practicing generosity frequently, every day. Find a way to practice generosity. But you need to do this from the middle way, because if you extend yourself, overextend yourself, you're not going to have the resources you need to sustain your life. But if you're on the other side of this, you'll be quite selfish. This is going to train your mind to let go. So you can share your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. So somebody drops their wallet on the ground. Oh, sir, ma'am, you dropped this. This is yours. That's generosity. You chose to pick that up and hand it to the person. You didn't have to do that. Or you held the door for that person going into the store. That's generosity. You just need to do it without any expectation of anything in return, because you're enhancing the quality of your mind. So you'd like to find ways to integrate this into your life. You're at the market and you're buying yourself some mangoes. Toss some bananas in there. Share it with your neighbors, right? You know your neighbors like bananas. Share it with them. This is the way you're going to practice generosity and make it really easy for yourself to do it frequently. You'd like to be practicing generosity every day. The Buddha talks about that. Then you'd like to be working on improving your moral conduct, using the Eightfold Path as a guide. Because in the unenlightened state, you'll have a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct where you'll have bitterness, harshness, and hostility towards certain people. Maybe your parents, your brothers and sisters, your life partner, your children. Those are the people that you're the closest to. You have the deepest attachment, and those are the relationships you're struggling in the most, perhaps. So you really need to pay attention to your moral conduct in those relationships, and that's where you're going to see improvement. So it's like an oil pipe has busted and it's spewing oil all over the world. Well, you're not going to go clean up the mess on the floor first. You're going to shut down the oil pipe, right? Because you'd like to stop this oil from spewing all over the world. So you would like to stop all this unwise moral conduct that's spewing all over the world, because it's just producing unwholesome results for you. So it's the Eightfold Path, right speech, right action, and right livelihood that's going to help you to see how to improve that. And you'd like to be focusing on that on a daily basis. Then same thing with your meditation. You'd like to be doing this on a daily basis, 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes. It can sound like a lot to some people, but if you look at your life, there's probably certain unbeneficial things that you can scale back on. That maybe you're looking at a lot of YouTube videos, or maybe you're searching social media a lot or something like that. You could scale that stuff back and you would have more time to be able to do things like meditation. What you're going to notice with things like meditation and generosity is your frequency is more important than the amount. So if it's a matter of one meditation for 30 minutes or two for 15. The 2 for 15 is actually going to be more beneficial for you. And then just gradually expand that 15 minutes. If it's a matter of giving $500 once a year to an orphanage or $1 a day, you'll find that the $1 a day is more helpful because you're having to let go more frequently, right? So you'd like to be able to train your mind with this frequency. The Buddha calls these 3 things, he calls it the way of practice, right? That when he was asked, what can we be doing on a daily basis to get to enlightenment? He said, practice generosity, improve your moral conduct, and practice meditation. These are the 3 things that are going to gradually help you get to enlightenment. And you need all the details, of course, but these are the 3 high-level things that you focus on. Then, as you go, seek guidance from a teacher. You're going to need help from somebody. You're not going to be able to read a book, watch videos, and get to enlightenment. Only a Buddha would be able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. So you're going to need someone to reach out to, someone you have confidence in, someone you can have access to, that you can reach out to and get help as you need help along the path, because you're going to have questions as you go and you're going to need that. So this is how you integrate the teachings into your life. Be taking classes regularly, reading some books, practicing generosity, improving your moral conduct, and practicing meditation, and then getting help from a teacher as needed. So any questions here? No questions? Okay. So here's all those things that you have available to you to be able to do those things. That you can get books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, and quizzes from our website. If you go to our website, you'll be able to have access to those. There's classes and courses and retreats online and in person. Those are also accessible from our website. We've got the group learning program that over a 7-month period goes through this first book, and it's repeated every 7 months. It's actually going to be restarting on August 9th. So we're going to be restarting that from the beginning, but we're actually doing it now. So you could actually continue in it now. And then there's the Words of the Buddha, the Path to the Pali Canon and English Study Group. This is volumes 2 through 13, where over a 1.5 year period, I go through all the books of volumes 2 through 13. And we restart that every 1.5 years. Then you can schedule personal discussions, because it's wonderful to learn in classes and use all these resources and stuff like that. But you're going to need help on a one-on-one basis, because you're going to need to learn how to apply the teachings. Because when I'm teaching like this, I can teach very generally and very broadly, but your specific issues that you have in your life, you're going to need to learn how to apply it to your day-to-day life. So as you need that help, you can reach out and we can meet in person if we're in the same town. Or if you'd like to meet online, you just schedule an appointment through our website and we'll meet in Zoom no matter where you are in the world. And then there's a Facebook group that you can ask questions there, and I'll be the one who answers your questions. So there's like 4 ways for you to get help. You can ask questions in class. You can post in our Facebook group, and I'll be the only one who answers your question. You can send me a private message like email or WhatsApp or Facebook or any of those others, or you can schedule personal guidance, because you're going to need that from time to time. Okay? And all of this is available at no cost. It's available to everybody. Question, Diego?
Okay, I understand about the enlightenment that it's not something to show off, but I would like to know if it's something that you talk about and you check where are you, and if you say like I'm 2nd stage or 3rd stage, and you talk with your teacher and you would say which stage are you or something like that?
I won't tell you what stage you're in, but I'll tell you what stage you're not in. Right? So like if a student comes to me, I've had this happen many times. Students will come and they'll say, "Oh, David, I think I'm in the 1st stage of enlightenment." Da, da, da. I'm like, "Really? Why do you think that?" And then they'll say, "Oh, because of this, this, and this." And then I'll just say, "Well, what about this, and that?" And they're like, "Oh, I didn't see that." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So do you still think you're in the 1st stage of enlightenment?" And they're like, "No, I'm probably in the jhanas." So then I'm like, "Okay, well, why do you think you're in the jhanas?" And they're like, "Because of this, and that." And I was like, "Well, what about this, and that?" And they're like, "Oh, I didn't see that." I was like, "So are you in the jhanas?" They're like, "No, I'm not even in the jhanas," right? Because the conceit is in there making you think you're more enlightened than you really are. So I won't tell you where you are, but I'll tell you where you're not. And I'll help you to be able to see that through asking you questions rather than telling you, because ultimately you've got to figure it out for yourself. You've got to be able to know where you're at on the path through learning the path. So I won't tell you, specifically you're not in the first stage or you're not in the jhanas, but I will ask you questions to help you be able to see that you are not actually in those places. Yep. Okay. So we've come to the end of our course, and usually what I do at the end of all my classes and courses as well is just thank you guys. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings. I really admire people who are willing to do this inner work, this inner growth and development, because it's not easy, right? But it's also not difficult either. It's just that you need to apply some effort and energy towards doing this work, because what you're choosing to do when you come to a place like this is you're choosing to improve. You're choosing to become a better and better person. And that's wonderful for you, for those close to you, and all of humanity, because the world just becomes a better and better place. I also like to thank students at the end of a course for anything that you've done to help us to be able to host these courses. Like sometimes students clean bathrooms, or they sweep the temple, or they take out trash, or they might put some financial support in the donation box to help us pay for electric and water and things like this. I'd like to just thank you for any generosity that you've practiced. Just know that I don't ever expect that, but I definitely appreciate it, because that's what helps us to be able to share the teachings with you. It helps us to help you. So thank you for any support that you might have offered here to be able to help us to continue to share these teachings with you and with others. And as you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you guys to do that. There's classes tomorrow and Sunday. You can see our bulletin board there. You can see our website. There's lots of opportunities for you guys to learn. And you guys are always welcome to talk with me as well. So we're officially done with this course from here. Like I was sharing with you guys at the beginning, there's some students that are going to be coming. They would like to go out to lunch, and they would also like to talk about the teachings and learn. So you guys are welcome to come along. We can make it one big group lunch if you like. The one person is studying with me a little bit. It's Sasha, and she's bringing her employees here who are all brand new people who are seeing changes in what it is that she's talking about and what she's experiencing. And she was interested in exposing them to some of the teachings. So we'll probably go have lunch and then maybe come back here and talk. I'm not sure, or we'll talk at lunch. But if you guys would like to go, they're supposed to be here at 11. So if you guys are interested in maybe tidying up here, if you guys would like to contribute to any assistance to kind of make the place look nice for the next group of people. The next event that we have here is tonight at 6:30. We have Temple Fun Night, which is like a social event. We have like music playing. We have like a little party. We have board games. So you guys are always welcome to come to that. We have that every Friday night. So again, thank you guys for your interest to learn. Thank you for your dedication. If there's anything I can do to help you guys in your journey, just let me know. Okay? Thank you so much. Sawadee-kap. That's the Chinese in you coming out.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.